Good morning. It is Summerween day 4 and welcome to part 2 of my Summerween vlogs. So if you haven't already, you can go and watch part 1, which is days 1, 2, and 3 of Summerween. I checked off 3 books from my TBR in that video. So now I have 4 books to go. So I have my 2 full-length novels. I have Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina and Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. Then I have the graphic novel The Sad Ghost Club. And then I also have my short story collection At Home with the Horrors by Sammy Scott. My goal was to read 2 stories of this each day, but I've only read 2 stories total so far, so I definitely need to catch up with this one. I am enjoying it so far, so I definitely want to read some more of this pretty soon. My plans for today. I am off today. I have some editing to do and I have to upload part 1 for my Summerween vlogs. I'm doing some laundry, doing some chores around the house, and I also have to go to the library because the Midnight Feast, which I read in part 1, is due today. I have a couple of things to pick up, so I think I'm going to do that first to get that out of the way, walk down to the library. I'll take you guys with me. I'm going to see if I can find the audiobook for Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I'm hoping it's on Spotify because this is the one that I want to start next. I also like listening to thrillers on audiobook. I've recently learned about myself. Let me refresh myself because I don't even remember what this is about. Interesting. Says a killer haunts a small southern town and 2 outcasts, the preacher's daughter and the boy from the wrong side of the tracks, hold the key to uncovering the truth. So I'm going to try to get the audiobook of this while I walk to the library. There and back is around an hour. I listen to audiobooks on 2 times speed usually, so I could get 2 hours into the audiobook, make a little dent in this, hopefully. So here's my little tote bag. I've had this for probably 10 years now. This, at one point, had the faces of the Beatles on it, but I've washed it a few times, and they've just come off. This is from Forever 21, and it's very, like, Tumblr, grunge era time. So, it was a pretty popular bag. You guys have probably seen it if you were in that era. Anyways, we have our library book we have to return. My library book I have to return. I always say our, or we. A water bottle with ice water, of course, my wallet. I have my reusable grocery bag because I have to stop at the grocery store on the way back and just get like 1 or 2 things, and I like to have a reusable bag. And then I was able to find Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I got the audiobook on Libby. It is 12 hours, so obviously I gotta bring my headphones. And that's pretty much it. I'm a little bit scared that it might rain on us because it's been forecasting rain for like days, every single day, but then it never actually ends up raining, and then it's just like really, really hot and sunny all day instead. Today, it is forecasted to be hot and sunny all day, but the clouds are out, so now I'm like, if I couldn't believe the weather on the other days, can I believe it today? I don't know, but we're gonna try. I'm not gonna bring an umbrella because I like to live on the edge. Anyway, I just gotta put my shoes on, start up my audiobook. We're gonna go. Sunscreen is applied, hair is up, and I'm ready to get moving. I'm back from the library now. I'm gonna give you guys my library haul and my update on the book before I go and take a shower. I was dripping in sweat. Definitely did not have to worry about rain. The clouds did not stay in the sky for very long. It was very sunny, it was very hot. But I picked up 5 books at the library. Will I get to all of them this month? I'm not sure. First of all, I got The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson and The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. These are for a reading vlog coming up pretty soon. I have a couple other books that I'm still waiting for to come in at the library. Then I have just a few books that I've been meaning to read for a while, and I kept suspending the holds, and then I was like, you know what, whatever. We're just gonna let the holds come in, and if I get to them now, I get to them now. And if not, then I'll just put another hold on later. So we got Schrader's Chord by Scott Leeds. I love this cover. I don't remember what the book is about, but I definitely want to get to this one if I can. Your Utopia by Bora Chung. This is another short story collection. This is the same author of Cursed Bunny, and I did really enjoy that collection, so I'm very curious about this one, if I'll like it as much or if it'll be a little bit different. And then I have Escape Velocity by Victor Manibo, I don't know how you pronounce it. This is a sci-fi book. This just came out earlier this year, and I was waiting because every time I would check on the library's website, like they didn't have it. They didn't have any copies on order. I couldn't put a hold on it because it just wasn't in the system. So it finally came up in the system. So obviously I reserved it. I don't remember what this is about. I think it's like a space mystery that occurs like on a spaceship or something. I got 20% of the way through the audiobook, or just the book, for Midnight is the Darkest Hour, which is chapter 9 in the physical copy. That brings me to page 65. I'm really enjoying it so far. Our main character is Ruth. She is the preacher's daughter, and they live in this very small town in Louisiana. The book starts off and she kind of, not a relationship, but she gets approached by an older man. She's 17, he's 24, and he seems interested in her, and she is kind of a hopeless romantic, and she's like, oh, like, I should feel so special. This older guy wants to hang out with me, and it's got to be a secret because I'm underage and I'm the preacher's daughter, but he wants to take me out to this special place, and it's going to be such a nice time, and I'm going to have my first kiss, and it'll be so sweet and romantic. But they get there, and he begins to force himself on her, but before that can really progress any further, Everett, who is kind of like the weird kid, the bad boy, like people, I don't know, make fun of him, and they just kind of stay away from him because he's just got this reputation. He comes out and finds them and finds the struggle, and they end up killing this man that was forcing himself on Ruth, and they throw his body into the swamp there. So now we are in the future, 6 years in the future, I think. So she's 23, and then there's just news that a skull has been found in the swamp, and they pull it out, and her and Everett are freaking out because they're like, oh my god, like, we're about to get caught. They're gonna find his body. They're gonna know that we did it. We're gonna go to jail. She's just absolutely freaking out. But then it comes out that the body is identified as somebody else. So she's no longer freaking out about possibly going to jail, but she's freaking out because there was an actual murder that took place. So they know that there is a killer out there, and it wasn't just, you know, this guy that she was responsible for the death for. So now she is very curious about that. I mean, the whole town is. There was also symbols carved into trees that were found there, symbols that kind of look like the devil. This is a very, very religious small town. There's definitely going to be a lot of themes of religious trauma, especially with Ruth being the preacher's daughter. She gets denied her chance to go away to college. Her father is just very overbearing, and her mother is kind of the same way, like not overbearing, but she is definitely under the wrath of her father as well, and can't really stick up for her, doesn't want to stick up with her because she shares the same beliefs, the religious beliefs of this family and of this town. So it's very interesting so far. I think that the atmosphere, the setting is painted perfectly, like this small town, very religious, as I said. I think I can really picture it, this little town in the South, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm very curious to see where it goes. I want to see if I can figure out why other people don't enjoy it. I'm sure that'll probably come into play with the mystery now that has been presented. So I'm definitely going to pick this back up, but I'm going to take a shower, as I said. We're going to take the dust jacket off because I will be physically reading it now. Let me take a moment for the beautiful colors and the spine. So this is going well. freshly showered. It did rain. We got the rain that I was expecting to come today. And I am now about halfway through Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I'm on page 175, chapter 22, and I'm still really enjoying it. We are going back and forth in the timeline between the present and then the past. And in the past, we get to see a lot more of Ruth, what her upbringing was like, growing up with the parents that she had in this very harsh home and just a very harsh upbringing in general, especially with the community that they live in. There have just been some very interesting conversations and commentary about that, and like religion, the way that the women are treated, the way that the children are treated, the way things are covered up by the church, things that they know are wrong, but because they are churchgoers and they are leaders here, they're allowed to get away with it. There's also talk, like Ruth, her safe space is books. She's always loved reading, but you know, her father being who he is, the town being the way that they are, they try their best to really filter the books that are available in the library, but she has been able to find some that have slipped through, and she's gotten into a little bit of fantasy. Her guilty pleasure was Twilight. She was able to find a copy of Twilight, and she's like obsessed with that book, which I just think is a really fun element, and I just enjoy learning more about her. But we also get to see her relationship with Everett developing in the past. They claim to just be friends, but the tensions are high. There's a lot of tension between the two of them, and I am not normally like a super huge fan of romance side plots, especially if it's in like a mystery thriller or like a horror book where it feels out of place, but I don't know if it's the way that it's written or the way that I feel about the characters. I feel connected to the characters. I'm here for the romance subplot. Like, I'm enjoying it. It's a slow burn. Obviously, it's not the main part of the story, but it's like, you two need to get together, especially because in the present now, Ruth has a different boyfriend, which just kind of raises the tensions even higher, and I'm really loving it. I'm loving their friendship and the flashes we get from that in the past. It's just very sweet and wholesome, and I just really like it. The mystery itself, there have been different things revealed, so that's definitely picking up. Ruth and Everett are definitely working not only to kind of solve things and bring like their own form of justice, but also to protect themselves so that their secrets of what happened with this man that they killed doesn't get out, but there can still be justice for certain people. So I really like it, and I'm excited but a little bit scared to see where it goes from here. I really hope it doesn't let me down because I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I think it's very captivating, very immersive. Like the setting, this little southern town is so perfect, and it's so interesting because, you know, very religious town. They're in the South. It's a very small town, and it just makes the whole community feel like it's stuck in the past, and in a way it is, you know, with their ideas and the values and the things that they are taught here. But I don't know, it's just so fun. I also kind of like the audiobook. The audiobook narrator has a little bit of like a country accent, which I wouldn't think I'd be a fan of, because when I listened to The Woods Are Waiting earlier this year on audio, I hated that narrator. I hated the accent. Like, it was the most annoying thing to me ever. But this narrator, like, it's very subtle and it's kind of cute. Like, I like the way she says window. She says winda. I opened up the window. It just, like, it's so cute, and it makes me feel even more immersed in the story and the setting of it all. And I feel like I'm there with the characters, and I really like the characters, so it's going well. So I'm gonna actually put a little bit of a pause on this for right now, and I'm going to go ahead and read The Sad Ghost Club, the graphic novel. It's a YA graphic novel. I don't even know what it's about. The back says, "This is not a sad story, though it begins with a struggle and anxious swirling thoughts. But sometimes even the worst of days can surprise you. Join the Sad Ghost Club and find your kindred spirits. You are not alone." So I feel like it might touch on mental health in a way that is friendly for younger children. and young adult readers. So I'm really excited. It just looks like it's gonna be just a cute little sweet moment. There's thunder outside. I think it's probably gonna rain again. I am nice and cozy. I have my cozy clothes on, and I think this will be the perfect vibe while I eat dinner. The Sad Ghost Club, and this was so freaking cute. I'm giving it 5 stars. I loved it. So basically, we start off, we have this character, their name is SG, and they wake up and they are basically, they have anxiety, and they're worried about pretty much everything. They're worried about this essay they have to do for school, and if they don't do the essay, they won't get into college, and then they won't get into a job, and then they'll have to live with their parents forever, and then they'll never accomplish anything. And then they get invited to a party, and they're worried about going to the party and having to interact with people. They're worried that this invitation to the party or the party itself is just a prank. They're worried that if they don't go to the party, then they'll be missing out on something. So it's definitely a very, very big spiral. They end up going to the party, and they meet another little sad ghost there, and this sad ghost's name is Socks, and Socks has struggled with depression. The two of them basically form a bond and just get to talking the whole night, and it's just very, very sweet and cute. The message is simple, you know, really the whole story is saying, like, you're not alone. If you have these feelings, if you struggle with your mental health, anxiety, depression, anything like that, you're not alone. There are other people like that. Like, it's not something that you have to feel alone in. And I just, like, it is a simple message, like I said, but the overall story was just so sweet and so cute and just very relatable. I have really bad anxiety. It's not so bad anymore, but I know when I was in high school, my anxiety was really bad, I had depression really bad, and a lot of like things that the characters in this book were experiencing and feeling, and the discussions that they were having were pretty much like the exact same way that I used to feel when I was in high school. So it was just very relatable. It made me want to cry a little bit just because it's just a sweet little story, and then the illustrations are so cute. There's a little cat in here, there's a little frog, there's a bird. Like, it's really adorable, very, very sweet. I'm really glad that I picked it up, and I would definitely recommend it, especially to, you know, younger readers that are struggling with anxiety or struggling with depression, just to see that, you know, there are other people that feel the exact same way. Even though, like I said, you know, that message is kind of spread everywhere all the time. You are not alone. But sometimes it still feels that way, especially with such deep and complex feelings that you can't really form words for just yet, or you just can't really comprehend just yet, especially being younger. I think this book puts words to those certain feelings really, really well, so I would definitely recommend it, and I had a great time. I'm really, really glad that I picked this up. So with that done, I'm gonna pick up Midnight is the Darkest Hour again and read that for a little while before I go to bed tonight, and then I will see you guys probably tomorrow with another update. Hi, it is the next day, and I have some fantastic updates for you guys. First of all, I am just putting the dust jacket back on Midnight is the Darkest Hour because I finished it. Let me tell you, I don't know why I was so apprehensive and so scared to read this book. I think it's just, like, I thought it was going to be really good, and then a bunch of people that I watch on BookTube and other reviewers whose opinions, like, I trust and our thoughts usually line up on certain things, weren't giving it really good reviews. So then I got nervous, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna hate this book. But, like, I'm giving it 5 stars. Like, it was actually so good. The ending literally left me speechless. Like, we got to the last page and I was like, oh my god, what a cliffhanger, what happens? And then I flip and it's a excerpt from a different book, and I was like, what? And that's still how I feel thinking about the ending. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to explain. I love the writing. This is my first book by Ashley Winstead, although I do have her 2 other thrillers, The Last Housewife and then In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I have those on my TBR. I do want to read them even more now that I have read this and loved it. But she also has a couple of romance books out, which makes me very curious because, like I talked to you guys in my last update, there is sort of a romance in here, and I really liked the way that was developed and written. So now I'm really thinking about picking up one of her romance books because I feel like I will have high chances of enjoying it. This, I don't think I would call a thriller or like a traditional type of thriller, like what you think of when you think of a thriller. This book is not that. It is romantic, it is suspenseful, there's a mystery, it's a drama, but I don't think it's necessarily a thriller. But I love the way that the story was told. The setting, I've talked to you guys before, I think was one of the strongest parts for me. And the characters, I loved Ruth and I loved Everett and I loved their relationship to each other. And just at the end of the day, like the story is really just about this corrupt small town and the different things that happen there with the church and the people that are a part of the church and different shady things and crimes that are taking place and the way that everything is connected. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is a book that is going to stick with me for a while. The characters are going to stick with me for a while. And I loved the writing so much. So I definitely need to pick up another Ashley Winstead very soon. I loved the audiobook. I loved physically reading the book. Like overall, it was just a great experience and I'm going to be thinking about it for a while. And it's really funny because I know I just said I wouldn't classify this as like a traditional thriller, and I do agree with that, but it is kind of in the thriller territory. And I feel like just recently I was thinking to myself, like, I don't know the last time that I had a 5-star thriller, or if that's even something that I will have again in the future. Like, I don't know, I just feel like I've read so many thrillers that the ones that I really enjoy, I just end up giving 4 stars, but I haven't really had any that stuck with me and were 5-star reads. And then I read this and I was like, this is a 5-star. And I knew that around the halfway point when I did my last update. I was like, this is going really, really well. But there was still like a lot more in the book. So I was like, maybe things will change. But the more I read, the more I loved it. And I'm so freaking happy that I finally got to this book. So that is update number 1. And then I read a little bit more of At Home with the Horrors once I finished that one. So I talked about the first 2 stories in my first Summerween vlog. The first story, just to do a little recap, was called What We Have Here. I gave that 4 stars. The second story, Teresa, I think I gave 3.5 stars. And then I've read 2 more stories since then. The third story, Blackbird, was my favorite by far. Initially, I gave it a 4.5 star rating, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't know if it's actually 4.5 stars because I feel like I have some questions or some things that could possibly be slight little plot holes. But basically that is about this woman who lost her mother in an accident. She is going to therapy, meeting with this therapist, and having really, really bad dreams and nightmares and having a hard time sleeping. And then one day she has a dream where she's with her mother, and she said, it's the first time I woke up and I felt peaceful and I felt like I had a happy dream, and I just wish I could hold on to that feeling. And the doctor tells her, well, it's funny you bring that up because I'm actually starting this sleep trial, this dream type of therapy where we'll put you under sedatives and kind of allow you to manipulate your dreams and dream of what you want. So then she starts to have these pleasant dreams on a regular basis with her mother. And then, as has been the theme with the stories so far, it takes a turn and it turns into something more than that. And this is definitely a twist that shocked me. I was legitimately shocked and caught off guard by the twist in that story. I was like, hold on. Hold on just a minute. And then the next story was called The Sisters, and we are following this woman who works for a home health agency, and she gets asked by the daughter to go and talk to her mother because they're trying to get her mother into a home, or to at least have home health services come to her home and help her out. But she had a really tough upbringing. Her sister was like kind of a psychopath and very abusive, and she is very adamant about not wanting to leave from her home, but her sister has just died, and now she is seeing her sister's ghost in the house. I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting setup, but overall, like, I don't think it was that crazy of a twist. I think it was kind of, I don't know, just a twist that's been done before, but it was still an enjoyable story. I gave it 3 stars. I said in my last update, or in my last video, my Summerween vlog, that the vibe of these stories and the way that they're written really reminds me of scary stories to tell in the dark. I still stand by that, but it also reminds me of Black Mirror as well, just because of like the twists in some of these stories. Like, I don't know, it just gives me, especially the one in Blackbird, really reminds me of Black Mirror, and I really hope that that theme is present throughout the stories. I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna read some more of this tonight, and then I'm also going to be starting the next book on my radar, which is Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. So that's my plans for tonight. Read a couple more stories maybe from here, because they're very short and they're very easy to read. So I'm gonna do that and then read this one as well tonight. And I'll let you guys know, as always, once I get a little bit into this. I am now about 100 pages into Sisters of the Lost Nation, and honestly, it's taking me a little while to get into it. I don't know how I feel about it right now. I am really not the biggest fan, and I have high hopes going into it because I read Indian Burial Ground by the same author and really enjoyed it. And the big thing that I kept talking about with that book was the writing. I was like, the writing is so freaking good. I need to read more from this author. Like, I was just obsessed with the writing. I've mentioned it so many times. I mentioned it in the vlog that I read that book, in my wrap-ups, in my Summerween TBR when I was talking about this book. And I don't know what it is, but it's just like not hitting me the same way in here. This is his first novel. It came out before Indian Burial Ground, so like it would make sense if there was a difference in the writing, if he, you know, improved from his first book to his second book, but there's not a really big time gap between the two, so I don't think that's it. I think maybe I'm just like not really connected to the characters in this one, because that's another thing I really loved about Indian Burial Ground were the characters. I felt very connected to them. I feel like they had so much depth, and I was really invested in the story and invested in the characters from the very beginning. And the setting I feel like was very vivid in Indian Burial Ground, and this is just like not doing it for me. Setting wise, character wise, writing, like I'm just not I'm not the biggest fan right now, and I'm a little bit sad about it. I'm hoping it picks up because I'm still pretty early on. So we have Anna. Anna is living on this reservation. Anna lives there with her family. She has a sister and a brother and their parents. Obviously, they live together. She's in high school. She's a high school senior, and both of her siblings are younger. Well, I don't know about her brother, but I know her sister is younger than her, and she has a job working in housekeeping at this motel. She was doing the morning shift, like before school she would go in, and then the evening shift manager just offered her a position on the evening shift. He said, like, you'll get more hours, so you'll make more money, like, come and work on the evening shift. So she decides to do that, but she witnesses some shady things happening there. And different women have gone missing over time on this reservation, and she starts to think that the manager the housekeeping evening manager at this motel is involved in that. And then her younger sister goes missing, and she believes that this motel is involved, and she is just kind of trying to figure that out. But we're not getting a lot of information on that so far because the timeline is jumping around. So we have like a past and present timeline technically. We have what I would call the present, where Anna's sister is missing, but we are also reading from about a month before that happens and learning about Anna and her sister and their relationship and stuff. So it's very interesting, and then it jumps around. So as you can see, let me show you what I'm talking about. Day 1. So that's like, that's the past timeline, day 1, because when you're in the like present timeline after her sister has gone missing, let me see, like this, day 33, that's like a month later. And then you can tell when it's after her sister has gone missing because it'll say like different time frames. So this one says 80 minutes gone, but that jumps around. It goes from like 5 hours gone to 23 minutes gone. And it's just kind of confusing so far because it's just like jumping around so much, but we're getting like the backstory and the build up to this. But then we also have Anna knowing that her sister is missing and trying to figure out what's going on with that. I don't know. It's just kind of confusing, and I'm just not really the biggest fan at the moment. It's been a very quick read though, so that is a positive. The chapters are short. I just hope that it picks up, it gets more interesting. I hope that the characters are given some more depth, and just I hope things improve overall. Hi, I apologize for the noise. I'm currently on the treadmill. This is not working. How do I feel about this angle? It's not great. Anyways, I'm still reading this. I am 154 pages in, and I'm not having a good time. I am having such a not good time that I want to DNF this, but I'm really sad, and I'm really surprised that I'm saying that because of how much I hyped this up in my head from how much I enjoyed Indian Burial Ground. I just thought I was going to love this book, and I'm just not. I'm not connected to anything, like I told you guys, and I kind of want to DNF it. However, as I stated, as you can tell, I'm on the treadmill. I like to read when I'm on the treadmill. So I told myself that I would read as much more of this book as I can in the time that I'm on the treadmill. And if I still feel like DNFing, then I'll just put it down. It's just like one of those situations in where when I think about picking this book up, I am just like, I don't want to. I don't want to pick this book up. I don't want to read. I would much rather be reading any of the other things that I'm currently reading than this book, and that's not a good sign. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Might DNF it. But speaking of other things that I'm currently reading, I started an audiobook today, the last one by Will Dean. Was this on my TBR? Was this on my radar for Summerween? No, but my Libby hold came in, and I decided to just go ahead and pick it up because I'm having one of those weird periods at work where I actually have the time to listen to an audiobook during the day, which does not typically happen. So the only thing I know about that book is it's a thriller. It's supposed to be shocking, it's supposed to be unpredictable, it's supposed to be ridiculous. You might have to suspend your belief a little bit to get into it. I am 55% of the way through it right now, but pretty much all the reviews that I read say that anything beyond the synopsis that the book gives you itself is a spoiler because things just get out of hand. Basically, we have this woman, she goes on a cruise, this big ocean liner with her boyfriend at the time, and then she wakes up the next day and she is the only one on the ship. Everybody else has seemingly vanished, so now she's kind of in a fight to survive and trying to figure out like what is going on there. So about 30% of the way through, we got our first little kind of reveal, little explanation for things that are happening. That one didn't surprise me because that was one of the things that was in my head that I was like, maybe this is what's going on. So I'm not shocked yet, but I know there's going to be more twists and more reveals to come, and I'm sure it's just going to go into over-the-top ridiculous territory. So I am interested. I am curious to see where it goes. The characters are making some not smart decisions so far, and I'm not really a big fan of any of them, but I could still enjoy a book even if I don't like the characters. So we're just going to see where it goes. But that's my update for now. Like I said, I'm going to try to finish this, not finish it. I'm going to try to read more of it while I'm on the treadmill and see if I can get more into the story, or if I do decide to officially DNF, I'll come back and let you guys know. So I've decided to stick... Hello? I've decided to stick with Sisters of the Lost Nation. I just made it to part 2, which is why I wanted to sit down and update you guys. This is 225 pages in, so just a little over 100 pages left in the book. It's still not my favorite. It's just very slow moving, and the mystery doesn't feel very compelling. Like, I'm curious to see what happens with it, but I feel like it's pretty straightforward what's going on, but I am curious to see like how it all gets resolved. There are other elements that I am enjoying. Anna's relationship with her sister is very strained, and I'm very curious to see like where that goes, if that gets resolved, if they kind of make up. Anna herself gets bullied at school. There have been some interesting conversations as well with these missing girls and people not taking it seriously. There was one young girl that went missing before Anna's sister, and people were kind of dismissing it because they knew that she was doing drugs, and they're like, well, she's a drug addict, like, who knows where she is? She's probably off in somebody's basement, like, high off her butt, and she doesn't know where she is. And Anna's over here, like, trying to advocate for these girls, and she's like, it doesn't matter, you know, if she's a drug addict or if she's doing drugs or whatever, like, the fact is she's missing. Nobody knows where she is. She could be in trouble. Like, people could be taking advantage of her. She could be in these, like, horrible situations, but nobody really cares because, like, she was a drug addict, so is she really that important, you know? Like, that kind of mindset. So those conversations are interesting, but it's just, like I said, it's very slow moving. The setting, I feel like, is not very strong in this book at all. I really loved Indian Burial Ground. I feel like I could picture the reservation really well, and the different houses there and different things that the characters were doing, but that feeling is not very strong in this book. But I have committed to finishing it. At Home with the Horrors, let's do another update on that because I read a couple more stories since I've talked to you guys last. I've read 4 stories, I guess. Peeping Tommy, that is about this kid who gets this weird obsession with like looking in other people's windows on his way home from school. He just thinks it's really interesting to see what other people are doing and what they're up to in their private lives when they think nobody's watching. And then it gets weird. It wasn't totally my favorite. I think I gave that one 3 stars. The next story was Becca, and that was about this couple. The man keeps waking up at night, and he looks outside and he sees a man in the yard staring at him, and he's there every night, and then things escalate. He starts screaming, he starts trying to come inside the house, and he knows the wife's name. So they're not sure how to handle it. They convince themselves it's a ghost. That took an interesting turn. Wasn't the best twist ever, but it was interesting. It was intriguing. I think I gave that one 3.5 stars. The next story was called Sleep Talker, and this is about a man who is talking in his sleep. So his wife sets him up with this like app to record noises when they're sleeping, and he picks up some interesting conversations that he's had in his sleep. I really like that one. I don't think I gave that one a rating yet, but thinking I would probably give it a 4 because I liked the direction that it went. I thought it was really cool. And then the last story I read so far is Rebirth. This one, we are reading about a man. It's his 21st birthday. his dad takes him out like for a beer or whatever. They get to having this conversation, and his dad starts telling him about when he worked for the CIA, and there were a lot of different things going on. And I don't want to give too much away. I think this is definitely a good one to like not know anything about when you go into it. And I think this one, the cat's playing with a toy down there. This one for me has been the closest to like Black Mirror, or the most reminiscent of Black Mirror, and I really liked it. It's definitely a story that's been on my mind since I read it, just because I think the concept's really interesting. It was a little bit predictable, like where things were going once you got to a certain point, but I liked it. I think I would give that one another 4-star maybe. So far my top 2 stories I would say are Rebirth and Blackbird. I just really like the tone and the writing of this. This is the first book that I've read by Sammy Scott, although I've heard of other things that he has published, so I would definitely be very curious in picking up some other things. I think a lot of his stuff is on Kindle Unlimited, so I'm really happy that's going well. I'm finally finished with Sisters of the Lost Nation. I'll be honest with you guys, the last 30 or so pages I did skim because I was just so over it by that point. I think to give it a rating, I would probably give it 2.5 stars, which makes me very, very sad. There were elements in here that I liked, and I'll definitely read more from Nick Medina. Like, this is not, you know, anything bad against him. I don't know why this one just didn't work for me when Indian Burial Ground worked so well for me. So I'll definitely read more from him in the future and hope that this is just like a fluke. There were certain things that I liked. I liked the overall message and what the author's goal is in trying to bring awareness to the fact of Native women going missing, but I didn't like the way the story was told, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because I don't want to keep repeating myself. But once again, I just didn't feel deeply connected to the characters. I didn't feel connected to the story. I didn't feel connected to really anything that was going on. I wouldn't call this a thriller because it's not thrilling. I wouldn't call it a mystery because it does have a mystery, but it's a very weak mystery. I guess you could technically call it a horror. It's more of like a subtle horror because it's about, you know, the horrors of real life and women going missing and the horrible things that are done to them. But I don't know. They're just like, it was very slow moving. There wasn't a lot to it, and I'm really sad because I feel very, very let down by this. I have my short story collection, I have my audiobook, I'm 63% of the way through, and then I also have a novella checked out on Libby right now, Such Small Hands. I don't know who the author is, but I think that's only just over 100 pages. So I'm thinking, because tomorrow's the last day of Summerween, I'm hoping that I can just squeeze that one in. I will definitely finish the audiobook, and I'll definitely finish the short story collection, and then I'll hope that I can get that novella in as well so we can get an extra book read for Summerween. I just finished Such Small Hands. Can somebody explain to me what the fuck I just read? Because I don't know what to make of this. It is the last day of Summerween now. I have some updates for you. I do apologize that this hasn't been a very eventful vlog. I've just been going to work, reading at work, coming home, and telling you guys about it. So I do apologize, but a girl needs a paycheck, so there's nothing I can do about it. But I completed 2 books today, and I am working on the last one, my last one for Summerween. So what should we start with? Maybe we'll start with the one that I completed first, which was my audiobook, The Last One by Will Dean. I finished it at work. Let's see. This book, I told you guys, the only thing I knew about it was that it was ridiculous, it was over the top, definitely was, and that it was shocking. Like, the plot twists were shocking, it was unpredictable, it was crazy. So tell me why I predicted every single reveal that happened way early on. There was literally a reveal that happened at 90% of the way through that I had guessed, like before I was 50% of the way through this book, and I was like, this is what's going on. The book tries to mislead you in other ways and make you believe other things, but I was adamant. I was like, no, I'm sticking with my theory because it just made sense in my mind. And then it was the truth, and everybody was so shocked, and I was just like, I told you that. I told you that that's what was going on. So maybe that's my fault for just consuming too much media and like other movies and books and things that have been kind of similar. And that's why I was able to guess it. I don't know. Maybe it's my fault. But like, don't let that deter you. You know, like, I don't want to take away anybody's fun. If you think that this will be something that you enjoy or you want to see if you can guess the twist, like, definitely do it. But for me, I didn't really enjoy it. I feel like the characters were making really dumb decisions throughout the book. Just a lot of things that happened in the book were dumb. And then the ending was absolutely ridiculous. That is the one thing I'll say. The one thing that did catch me off guard. I was not expecting it to end the way that it did, but it was stupid. So I think I would give it 2.5 stars. I think that's what I'm gonna go with for my rating. To focus on the positives, I will say that it was entertaining. It was very fast moving. There was a lot of things constantly happening, and you're very quickly drawn into the story. So we're just gonna leave it on a positive note there. Moving on, I told you guys I wanted to try to squeeze in one more book. So I had the novella Such Small Hands checked out on Libby, and I've had it checked out for almost 3 weeks because it's due in a couple of days. So I was like, I should probably get to this. It's only over 100 pages, so it should be a quick read. It was a quick read, but it was very strange. I'm just opening it up on my Kindle so that I can hold it up while I talk about it. I feel like there were definitely things that went over my head in this one, so it's gonna be hard for me to give like a full review. Like, I definitely grasped what the plot was and what happened throughout the story. The ending I understood, like I understood what was going on, but I feel like there was definitely a lot of symbolism that you could go back and analyze and make metaphors out of, and just really, like I said, just analyze everything that happened and everything that was talked about. There were some quotes that I really enjoy. This is a translated book. I think it was translated from Spanish by Lisa Dillman, and I really liked the writing. There were some really interesting quotes and really interesting things brought up. Maybe I should tell you what the book's about, right? So we have this little girl. Her name is Marina, I believe. And she is, I think, 7 years old, and we start off with her basically telling us about how her parents died. They died in a car accident. She was with them. She got injured as well, so she stays for a long time in the hospital. Her father died like on impact, I think, or right away, and then her mother died later at the hospital. Marina had to stay in the hospital for a long time to recover. She had to get stitches on her side, and then eventually she is placed in an orphanage. When she gets to the orphanage, all the girls are like really enamored with her. She's different, she's new, and there's just something that draws all these girls to her. And at first they're really like, oh, I want to be just like her, like so captivated by her. And then it turns into them taking out their anger on her and tormenting her in different ways. So I don't want to give too much away. Marina, when she arrives at the orphanage, she brings a doll with her. This doll was given to her by her psychologist that she saw in the hospital. And she becomes very connected to that doll. And different things happen with that doll that lead to the children playing a game, and then eventually leads us to our ending. I feel like it's so much more deep and complex than anything I could explain to you or anything that the synopsis could say. So if you like weird things, if you like symbolism, if you like things with a gothic feel to it, if you like things that, you know, have this allure of an orphanage and strange children. It gets dark, but not like super dark. Like, it's not very descriptive. Like, there's no crazy descriptions of abuse or gore or anything like that, but it just has this tone to it that is very unsettling. And I liked it. So I think I'd give it 4 stars, but like I said, I think there's definitely some things that have probably gone over my head, so I'm not the person to sit here and analyze everything with you and talk about all the complexities and the symbolism in it. I'm sure somebody else on the internet has probably done that very well. Switching back now to our short story collection. I'm currently in the middle of a story, so we won't talk about that one. I think the last one I talked to you guys about last night was Rebirth, so I have read another 4 since then. We have Catherine. What was Catherine about? Oh, I know why I don't remember that one. It's because it didn't really like stand out to me, honestly. We have this woman. She is in a new house, and she starts to see this ghost. She starts to kind of figure out a way to communicate with this ghost and help him with his unfinished business. Things get a little bit out of hand by the end of it. It just wasn't anything crazy. I feel like to me it was just like a standard little ghost story, so it's not anything that really is going to stick in my mind. So I give that one 3 stars. Scared Mary, I believe I gave 3 stars as well. This was also another very meh story. This is about this woman. Her husband pranks her one day, like scares her in the shower, and she screams and she freaks out, and it's so funny. He gets a video of it, he posts it online, and then it just kind of goes viral, and then her husband is like obsessed with clinging on to this fave and like scaring her and posting these videos, and then he eventually like grows up this big YouTube channel where he does pranks on her and on their children, and it just grows into this big thing, and then escalates to something else at the end. But that was another one that I feel like was just, it wasn't anything surprising, it wasn't anything super crazy, so it's not anything that's gonna stick in my mind very far into the future. The next one, something else entirely, I think I gave this one 4.5 stars. I think this is another one of my top stories. This is about this couple. The husband, when we find them, is getting ready to go off on a business trip. Right as he's leaving, the cat gets out of the house and like just runs off into the woods, and he's like, oh well, gotta go, peace, and leaves his wife there, who's a little bit upset, about the cat. But the cat, she traps it comes back, and things are not as they seem. Like, the cat is acting different and appearing different. So she's kind of left to deal with it on her own while the guy's away at this business trip. I really liked it, and I don't know, it was just like the creepy, like the cat horror story I was really into. The next story was called Nancy. This is about a man that is getting haunted, basically, by a ghost, and haunted by his past, really. It was interesting. I don't really have any strong feelings towards it. I don't know. I don't think I gave this one a rating yet, but probably like a 3.5 or a 4 maybe. I'm leaning more towards 4 because I did like it. I liked the direction that it took and the way that it ended. So I'm currently on the story People You May Know. Like I said, I'm about halfway through that one. And then the next one is the novella, which is the last story for this book. So I'm almost finished with it. I'm honestly sad that Summerween's coming to an end, but I'm really grateful for it because I feel like I was in a weird reading mood recently where I just wasn't super motivated to read things. And I think this has definitely like picked up that spark in me again, and now I'm like, I just want to read everything. Like, why can't everything just be Summerween? Because then I feel like I would read so much. It is 11:51 p.m. and I've just finished my last book for the Summerween readathon. I got it in just before midnight. There was only 2 more stories that I've read since I last talked to you guys. The last one was like the novella, so it took me a little bit longer to read. We'll get into that in a second. So the one before that was called People You May Know, and that's about a guy. He's on Facebook one day and he sees a recommended friend, and it's this girl he knew in college. He went out with her. Oh my god, the cat. Sorry, the cat's mad that I'm not sleeping in bed with her right now, so she just wants to sabotage everything. Anyway, he's on Facebook and he sees like suggested friends, and it's this girl he knew in college. He went out with her at one point, and on their date she got into this big fight with her ex-boyfriend. And basically he's like talking to his wife. He's like, isn't that so crazy? Because they met on that date. And he was like, yeah, like if that never happened, like we wouldn't be together. And it's just a weird story of him reflecting on that. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I don't want to give anything away. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was interesting. I liked the ending, although it wasn't anything super shocking or surprising. Now, on to the last one, Emile Bones. This was like a novella because it was, I think, about 140 pages. I literally just finished it like 30 seconds ago. We got a 5-star for the collection. This was so good, and I don't know if it's just because I'm like reading this late at night, but that story genuinely creeped me out, and I've been like reading it, and I've just been, I swear, I've been hearing things, I've been seeing things. I'm like looking around like, is Emile here? Is he haunting me? We're following this woman. She's a librarian. She has a young son that's 8 years old. She's divorced from his father, and his father lives about an hour away. One day, she's at the library, and she picks up all the books that came in, like, after hours into the drop box, and she finds one in there that isn't a library book. It's just a small little black book, and she's kind of intrigued, so she opens it up, and it's basically this poem about this little boy named Emile Bones, and it says, like, he just wants to be your friend, and don't let him in or else he'll never leave. And it's just very creepy and very ominous. So obviously she starts to get haunted by this entity, this little boy. And it starts to progressively get worse. But it's so freaking creepy and genuinely unsettling. And like I said, maybe it's just because I'm reading it late at night that I feel this way, but like I think I'm going to be thinking about that story for a long time. It actually freaked me out. There are a few things that I've read that have genuinely scared me, and now this will be added to the list, and I'm quite happy to report that. So I would definitely recommend this collection, even if you pick it up and just read that last story on its own. I would definitely recommend it. This was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. I like the writing. Like I said, this is the first book I've read by Sammy Scott, although, oh my god, cat. They just want to sabotage me. I'm definitely going to read more by Sammy Scott now. We're going to leave it at that because there's not much else that I can say that's not repeating what I already said in past clips when I was talking about this. But that brings us to the end of Summerween. Let me think. I read 1, 2, 3, 4. I just forgot how to do math. How many books did I read? Okay, I read 3 today. Midnight is the Darkest Hour, Sisters of the Lost Nation, The Sad Ghost Club, The Midnight Feast, The Summer I Died. There's one more that I'm missing. The Body. 9 books. I read 9 books for Summerween. I'm going to post like a little tiny wrap up on Instagram, but I think for the vlog, I'm just going to leave it here because I'm sure this is really, really long. I love Summerween. I'm ready for next Summerween already. Let me know how many books you guys were able to read for this readathon, if you had any new favorites from it. I'm very, very curious to find out. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.